Thank you very much, Tommy, and welcome to Snowy Buffalo. LD, are we having fun yet?
You gotta love this weather, right? You're from Canada. You're used to this.
I've been in Florida for a long time, my friend. This is cold. We're getting bands of snow, blowing snow that are moving through. Snow's expected to stop this afternoon, but the wind chill, of course, is going to be the big thing that's kicking up. You can probably hear the breeze. We can certainly feel it. The temperatures are going to dip, and of course, because of the fact that it's going to be so treacherous to travel, that's why they've moved the game to tomorrow. It is expected to ease off this afternoon, and then going into tomorrow, a little bit of snow expected tomorrow. It's just supposed to be a little bit cooler. It's not going to be as toasty as it is right now. But LD, in terms of preparation, I want to ask you about this as a former player. When you are prepared for a game that takes place on a day and then you're told, hey, that game's being moved 27 hours back, how does that affect your preparation as a player?
Well, Jeremy, we're so meticulous as players, right? We do everything in a certain way. We have a certain schedule set week in and week out. And pushing the game back, it changes that in the mentality point of it, right? Talked to a few players and staff members from the Bills yesterday. They said yesterday, which would be a typical Saturday, which you come in, you have meetings, you just do a walkthrough, then you have a few hours off, go to the team hotel, get ready for the game the next day. They kind of did a abbreviated Friday practice, which is more of a up-tempo type practice, and today they'll do a traditional Saturday practice, which means they'll do their walkthrough, meetings, and everything today. But the thing that gives you pause, right? Now you have all this extra time, Jeremy.
Right.
Family members in town, everybody stuck in the house. Distractions can be a thing when you have to move a game back. Now it's all about the mental focus, getting refocused to get ready to play this game.
In terms of what this could mean moving forward, because of the fact that we have the game that's moved forward an extra day. So the NFL schedule, it's been flexible with the weather that we've seen over the last week or so, certainly here in Buffalo. But if Buffalo wins this game, they've got to play here again.
Correct.
And the schedule is kind of set the way it is. Now, winter storms being the way they are, things are unpredictable as we've seen. How could what happens tomorrow affect what happens moving forward into the divisional round?
Well, not only is this week already affected, you talked about it, now they're going to have a shortened week to prepare for next week, whether they advance or not, whether it's the Steelers or the Buffalo Bills.
Right.
So now, I talked about it. As players, we're creatures of habit, right? So on Monday is usually a recovery day. You come in, watch film. Tuesday's your real day where you do your body work and everything. Now all that is going to be sped up because you had to push this game back. So, again, it's whatever team that can refocus the best mentally. I know the physical part is one thing, playing in these type of elements. But the mental capacity of it, right? Refocusing, getting your mental right, speeding up your clock to do all your body work and everything. Whoever does that, they're going to have the best chance to win this game.
And there we get a nice little
breeze.
Nice little breeze that pops through. We know Pete Prisco's in the studio. He's probably having a good laugh right now as we sit out here and deal with this band that's moving through. But, you know, Pete made an interesting point. We talked about this last week. We saw his tweet. He said it's disgusting to play in weather like this. It ruins football playing in weather like this. As somebody who played in weather like this, what do you think? Is Pete right? Do you think they should be playing in weather like this, or should they be playing it somewhere else?
Pete, tough enough. Nah, I usually don't like to agree with Pete Prisco, Jeremy, but I 100% agree with them on this. I mean, there's no reason to play in elements like this. I know there's a toughness element to this, and everybody wants to see tough players go out and play in different elements, but this isn't an advantage for a home team or an away team. When it's wind gusts like this, you can't throw the ball. Now, we saw the Chiefs last night and Patrick Mahomes be able to kind of throw the ball down the field, but we saw those wind gusts kind of taper off a little bit. Yeah. This is different when you're dealing with the snow and the wind. I don't think anybody should play in this. Pete, I actually agree with you. I don't like to agree with you, but I don't think any team should be playing in elements like this.
Well, it's going to ease up. That's what we're being told. It's going to ease up as we move towards tomorrow. Let's go inside and warm up a little bit, shall we? Send it back to the nice, toasty, warm studio. Tommy, back to you.
Thank you, Jeremy. You know, we joked, too, about this studio being a little extra warm, and that would be nice for those two guys at this point in time.
Hey, by the way, if you don't like cold weather, it doesn't make you soft. It's a great myth, okay?
It makes you soft.
No, it doesn't. It makes you smart.
You're soft.
Okay, if not liking cold weather makes me soft, then call me as soft as toilet paper, okay?
You are. You're Charmin. That's your new nickname.
Monday, January 15th. That's tomorrow, 4:30 Eastern on CBS. Moments That Matter, presented by Hilton Hilton for the state. Brady, again, Ligier touched upon it, the player perspective of playing. We saw a little bit play out at Arrowhead last night. What's that going to be like for those players?
Well, let me just first address this, is they aren't playing in this weather. They're not playing today. They're playing tomorrow. When the weather's supposed to be better, the field will be plowed. It's a different condition than what they're in today. So because of the emergency and the state of emergency they're in, they're not playing today. So, how much the weather will play a factor, we'll see what tomorrow's weather looks like. The cold and wind are the two biggest things that you're concerned by. The cold because of the grip for a quarterback, all right? If you can't feel your fingers quite as well as a receiver, any ball carrier, it's obviously going to be harder to be able to take care of the football. But because of that for a quarterback, when you can't feel your fingers as well, then you've got a wind that plays a factor. Now when you don't throw a tight spiral, and we saw this a bit in Kansas City, especially for Tua, that ball is going to look like an unwrapped Christmas gift just floating in the air.
Or
like
a Tebow pass.
Or, yeah, however you want to point to. But the reality is, that's what it's going to impact. If you can't spin the ball quite as well through the wind, it's not going to cut through the wind. It's going to play a factor in how you go about throwing. You may only be throwing in one direction, or may only be throwing on one way going down the field. So it's a half of football where you feel good about your game plan passing the ball, not so much in the other half, depending on the direction of it. There's all those things that you factor in. But as far as the cold goes, toughen up, Pete. It's not that bad.
By the way, we do have some video, Brady Quinn, in the elements, also for Pete to take a look at here. So again, we're talking about how those games can play out. Brady, what do you remember about the long
It was cold. It was cold. -6 with the wind chill there.
Put it on his numbers, why don't you?
Trust me. Trust me. There was a lot of passes we were hoping just to complete the football.
I mean,
but
Brady Quinn, put it. Okay, man, I could have done that. You hand it off.
That's right.
That's not a problem.
That's right. No, look, it was a good win for us. Defense stepped up in a big way. We kind of was able to control the game early on. But this was one where that was the only direction you were throwing downfield, was that way that Ben was going, because the weather was whipping through, the wind was whipping through there so bad. But that's one of the coldest games I think we've ever played there in Cleveland. It was -6 with the wind chill.
Do you remember your stats from that game?
No, it wasn't good, but we won the game.
I want to see the stats. I got to remember the stats.
We don't worry about stats when you win games, Pete.
We want to see.
Win matters most.
We do. Me and Tommy do.
You do, but we don't as a player. Did you win or did you not? That's
well,
all
you
that
had a
matters in that
completed
case.
pass on one that was behind the guy. So
it was a great catch by Mohamed Massaquoi.
As you guys still talk that out, let's bring in our Vegas insider, Todd Furman, for the first time
It's
today.
unbelievable. You can win games in this league, but Pete's still going to knock you
quarterback,
for what it was.
Quarterback wins as a stat, huh?
You say it's not, but apparently it only matters sometimes when you win and lose games, right?
It's not.
It means. All right, Todd, we're bringing you in here because particularly from this game, from a gambling community perspective, a lot of voids, some rush to bet again, and also we're seeing a difference in both the spread and the total here. Just give us the quick synopsis of what's kind of gone on in the last 24 hours.
You know, honestly, Tommy, before we get into that, I'm most impressed that CBS sprung for the green screen to really create that level of authenticity for Jeremy and Ligier to provide that report. We know we have Paramount Plus studios and everything else, but they actually look legitimately cold out there in a nice climate-controlled environment. So job well done for those boys. Sports Emmy hopefully on the horizon.
Get on in here, guys. Come on in now.
Don't walk into the shop, fellas.
You mentioned what this has done from a betting perspective, and it's always so important to check the house rules in terms of what book you're placing your wager with, because some shops, given the change in date, actually voided those wagers, whether it was a side, total, or any of the individual player props. Other books honor the bets as long as the home team remains the same, the venue isn't changed for up to 7 days. And we saw a lot of books during the COVID years really go about making sure that they adjusted those rules to be prepared for any of these contingencies. We saw this total open as high as 43.5 last Sunday night. Immediately, professional bettors looked to jump on this thing and continue to drive it down. It dipped as low as 33.5 before the game was officially moved to Monday. And then the number gets reopened in that 37.5, 38 range. But Brady mentioned it. I mean, everybody making a big deal about the weather, and rightfully so. But the conditions expected if the game was played today, a lot different than what we're seeing in the forecast tomorrow. And while it's still not optimal, not going to be nearly as bad unless some of that lake effect comes in right before kickoff.
So with that, then, let's get picks. And Todd, I'll start with you because there's been about a 4 to 5 point change in the total, and yet you still want to go over that 37 number in Monday's game.
I do. I think when you look at the forecast now, I mean, it's projecting 9 to 13 mile an hour winds, gusts north of 30 miles an hour. Yes, the temperatures are going to be freezing, but here's the thing about it. I mean, we saw a game similar to this that the Buffalo Bills played in nasty winds against the New England Patriots a few years ago. And while the teams aren't the same now in terms of the way they're constructed, this Pittsburgh Steelers defense, especially without TJ Watt, is a below average unit. We've seen Joe Brady commit to running the football, and I think that sets up perfectly for a game in the elements, whether it's leaning on Leonard Fournette, getting James Cook his touches, or using Josh Allen's legs. And at the same time, Mason Rudolph potentially playing from behind, throwing into the wind, could create some short fields. So this is a total that I would set in the mid-40s if it was played in perfect conditions. We're getting a little bit of a discount here because of the weather. Guys, I know you're going to look like either an idiot or a savant with a game like this, but I'm happy to go over a total of 37. I think Buffalo can do a lion's share of the damage, and hope Pittsburgh's at least able to run the ball and put up 10 to 13 points.
So you guys are on opposite ends of the side. Now that it's a key number of 10, by the way.
It's a big game for us, by the way, this week.
Well, sort of. More for you.
Yeah.
There's really no losing for me this week for our picks. But I would not touch the over-under. I think that's a risky play that Todd's making, only because there is so much uncertainty in my mind.
But expected, though.
Well, I'm not going to knock you, Todd, for doing it, because I think it takes a lot of risk. Because you're anticipating how the game flow is going to go. You're anticipating Buffalo jumps out to a lead, they build that lead, and then Pittsburgh has to come back, and that number ends up jumping over the total, maybe through some defensive touchdowns like we saw in the Browns-Houston game. Potentially not. But I look at this and I think it's more about the line of scrimmage once again. I think the difference for Buffalo this year, because they're going to win this game, is their offensive line. They're much more physical. I think since they turned over to Joe Brady, they've wanted to find that identity running the football, and it's worked out for them so well. So I know you're going to talk about Josh Allen, and he's been phenomenal. He has been. I don't think they can continue to win with him leading them in rushing, doing everything too in the passing game as well. They've got to have more balance. They have to ask the other pieces on their team to do more. And so it's going to come down to, can the Bills stop the rushing attack of the Steelers, and can they run the football effectively? Because Josh Allen's going to do what Josh Allen does. He's going to create some plays, but they got to give him some more help. You can't play that way and win that way consistently throughout the playoffs.
This game calls for the quarterback scales. And the quarterback scales heavily favor the Buffalo Bills. By the way, what is it? Fourth game for Mason Rudolph. You know what happens to guys when they play their fourth game as a backup quarterback? Pooh! It goes bad. It's going to go bad. Buffalo wins and covers this number.
I don't have that. I've got the Steelers covering this number. I think it's a little tighter game. Look, it's a playoff team. Mike Tomlin has consistently
An accidental playoff
overachieved with the way he's been able to, throughout his entire career there in Pittsburgh, build up rosters, find ways of getting to win games. He's a phenomenal coach.
It's an amazing job there in the postseason.
It is, and I think he's why they keep this one close. It's going to be Mike Tomlin, the game plan that those guys put together and execute.
There's a stat as we hit a break.